to the cloud. Good evening, everybody. Glad you could be here with us for this next installment on the story of Vrtrasura. And last week, we discussed Vrtrasura, how he was, his appearance, and then a battle between the demigods and the demons, Vrtrasura, and that is ongoing. So this chapter we'll be studying tonight is, hold on just a moment. This is chapter 11 and chapter 12 in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6. And this discusses Vrtrasura's qualities, character, transcendental qualities of Vrtrasura, and then the death of Vrtrasura. So I am going to offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, and we'll start the reading. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devim Gaurivari Pricharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Shatarane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Gadadhar Shivasti Gauri Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapters 11 and 12 tonight. If you don't mind, though, I'd like to remind everybody just to pick up one little part from the last chapter, chapter 10. On the battlefield, the demigods obviously now had Indra had this thunderbolt, which would easily destroy Vrtrasura. And the battle had been raging, and all of the demigods were becoming very victorious against the demons. And the demons were fleeing the battlefield. All great heroes on the Asura side had been fleeing the battlefield. So Vrtrasura said in the very last of the 10th canto, or 10th chapter, he said, everybody who's taken a birth, his death is certain. Krishna said this in Bhagavad Gita also. Surely no one in the world has found any means to be saved from inevitable death. Everybody is on the way to death, and every day of their life, they are dying. So underneath these circumstances, death being inevitable, if one can gain promotion to higher planetary systems and be celebrated here by dying a suitable death, what man will not accept such a glorious death? He goes on to say there are two ways to actually die a glorious death. And one of those, and by the way, those deaths, both of those deaths are very, very rare in the world. One is to die performing mystic or bhakti yoga, to fix the mind absorbed completely in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one is leaving the material body. And the second is to die on the battlefield, engaged in the service of the Lord, leading the army and never showing one's back. We don't see that much today. But these two kinds of death are recommended in the Shastra as being very glorious deaths. And so he had told all of the warriors who were fleeing, please come back. And he called them by name. They still kept fleeing. And he was left to face the demigods alone on the battlefield. So now we're going to start on this 11th chapter. And I'll go ahead and start reading. And if you want to read, Bob, in a little bit, or if anybody wants to read, they're certainly welcome to do that. Text 1, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King, Vrtrasura, the commander-in-chief of the demons, advised his lieutenants in the principles of religion. But the cowardly demoniac commanders, intent upon fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not even accept his words. O King Pripsit, the demigods, taking advantage of a favorable opportunity presented by time, attacked the army of the demons from the rear and began driving away the demoniac soldiers, scattering them here and there as if their army had no leader. Seeing the pitiable condition of the soldiers, Vrtrasura, the best of all the Asuras, who was called Indra Shatru, the enemy of Indra, was very much aggrieved. Unable to tolerate such reverses, he stopped and forcefully rebuked the demigods, speaking the following words in an angry mood. O demigods, these demoniac soldiers have taken birth uselessly. Indeed, they have come from the bodies of their mothers exactly like stool. What is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they are running away in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who is afraid of losing his life. Such killing is never glorious, nor can it promote one to the heavenly planets. O insignificant demigods, if you truly have faith in your heroism, if you have patience in the cores of your hearts, and if you are not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment. Prideful, huh? So he says, Sukadeva Goswami said, Vrtrasura, the angry and most powerful hero, terrified the demigods with his stout and strongly built body. When he roared with a resounding voice, nearly all the living entities fainted. When all the demigods heard Vrtrasura's tumultuous roar, which resembled that of a lion, they fainted and fell to the ground as if struck by thunderbolts. As the demigods closed their eyes in fear, Vrtrasura, taking up his trident and making the earth tremble with his great strength, trampled the demigods beneath his feet on the battlefield the way a mad elephant tramples hollow bamboos in the forest. Seeing Vrtrasura's disposition, Indra, the king of heaven, became intolerant and threw at him one of his great clubs, which are extremely difficult to counteract. However, as the club flew towards him, Vrtrasura easily caught it with his left hand. O King Pariksit, the powerful Vrtrasura, the enemy of King Indra, angrily struck the head of Indra's elephant with that club, making a tumultuous sound on the battlefield. For this heroic deed, the soldiers on both sides glorified him. Struck with the club of Vrtrasura like a mountain struck by a thunderbolt, the elephant Airavata, feeling great pain and spitting blood from its broken mouth, was pushed back 14 yards. In great distress, the elephant fell with Indra on its back. When he saw Indra's carrier elephant thus fatigued and injured, and when he saw Indra morose because his carrier had been harmed in that way, the great soul Vrtrasura, following religious principles, refrained from again striking Indra with the club. Taking this opportunity, Indra touched the elephant with his nectar-producing hand, thus relieving the animal's pain and curing all its injuries. Then the elephant and Indra both stood silently. O king, when the great hero Vrtrasura saw Indra, his enemy, the killer of his brother, standing before him with a thunderbolt in his hand, desiring to fight, Vrtrasura remembered how Indra had cruelly killed his brother. Thinking of Indra's sinful activities, he became mad with lamentation and forgetfulness. Laughing sarcastically, he spoke as follows. Sri Vrtrasura said, "He who has killed a Brahman, he who has killed his spiritual master, indeed, he who has killed my brother, is now, by good fortune, standing before me, face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one, when I pierce your stone-like heart with my trident, I shall be freed from my debt to my brother. Only for the sake of living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother, a self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahmin, who had been appointed your chief priest. He was your spiritual master, but although you entrusted him with the performance of your sacrifice, you later mercilessly severed his heads from his body the way one butchers an animal. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Deprived of these good qualities by the reactions of your fruitive activities, you are to be condemned even by the man-eaters, Rakshasas. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident, and after you die with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your dead body. You are naturally cruel. If the other demigods, unaware of my prowess, follow you by attacking me with raised weapons, I shall sever their heads with this sharp trident. With those heads, I shall perform a sacrifice to Bhairava and the other leaders of the ghost, along with their hordes. But if in this battle you cut off my head with your thunderbolt and kill my soldiers, O Indra, O great hero, I shall take great pleasure in offering my body to other living entities, such as jackals and vultures. I shall thus be relieved of my obligations to the reactions of my karma, and my fortune will be to receive the dust from the lotus feet of great devotees like Narada Muni. O king of the demigods, since I, your enemy, am standing before you, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, like a request of money from a miser, the thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You have no doubts about this. O Indra, king of heaven, the thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by the prowess of Lord Vishnu and the strength of Dadichi's austerities. Since you have come here to kill me in accordance with Lord Vishnu's order, there is no doubt that I shall be killed by the release of your thunderbolt. Lord Vishnu has sided with you. Therefore, your victory, opulence, and all good qualities are assured. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage and shall give up this body in this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarshan has said. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of the material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them all. Our Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forbids his devotees to endeavor uselessly for religion, economic development, and sense gratification. O Indra, one can thus infer how kind the Lord is. Such mercy is obtainable only by unalloyed devotees, not by persons who aspire for material gains. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant so that my mind always thinks of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engages in the loving service of your lordship? O my Lord, source of all opportunities, I do not desire to enjoy Dhruvaloka, the heavenly planets, or the planet where Lord Brahma resides, nor do I desire to be the supreme ruler of all the earthly planets or the lower planetary systems. I do not desire to be the master of mystic yoga, powers of mystic yoga, nor do I want liberation. If I have to give up your lotus feet, O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes await anxiously the time of milking when they will be allowed to drink the milk of their mothers, or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I always yearn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. O my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world, as a result of my fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attracted to them no longer. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. So that's the chapter 11 and beautiful prayers by Vrtrasura. So chapter 12, this is Vrtrasura's glorious death. Would you like to pick up there, Bhavananda, and read for a while?
Unless there's somebody else out there that wants to.
No, I don't know. Just go ahead, you grab it, and if somebody else wants to jump in, they can. If not, when you're finished, I can pick up reading again.
Oh, okay. I'll give it a shot here.
Thanks.
Sukadev Goswami said, desiring to give up his body, Vrtrasura considered death in the battle preferably to victory. O King Pritchett, he vigorously took up his trident and with great force attacked Lord Indra, the king of heaven, just as
Kataiba
had forcibly attacked the Supreme Personality of Godhead when the universe was undulated.
Inundated.
That was close.
Yep.
Then Vrtrasura, the great hero of the demons, whirled his trident, which had points like the flames of the blazing fire at the end of the millennium. With great force and anger, he threw it at Indra, roaring and exclaiming loudly, O sinful one, thus shall I kill you. Flying in the sky, Vrtrasura's trident resembled a brilliant meteor, although the blazing weapon was different to look upon. King Indra, unafraid, cut it to pieces with his thunderbolt. Simultaneously, he cut off one of Vrtrasura's arms, which was just as thick as the body of
Vasuki,
the king of the servants. Although one of his arms was severed from his body, Vrtrasura angrily approached King Indra and struck him on the jaw with an iron mace. He also struck the elephant that carried Indra. Thus Indra dropped the thunderbolt from his hand. Having dropped the thunderbolt from his hand in the presence of his enemy, Indra was practically defeated and was very much ashamed. He dared not pick up his weapon again. Vrtrasura, however, encouraged him, saying, take up your thunderbolt and kill your enemy. This is not the time to limit your fate. Vrtrasura continued, O Indra, no one is guaranteed of being always victorious, but the original enjoyer, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavatam. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and he knows everything. Being dependent and being obliged to accept material bodies, belligerent subordinates are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. All living beings in all the planets of this universe, including the presiding deities of all the planets, are fully under the control of the Lord. They work like birds caught in a nest, who cannot move independently. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. O King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman or as an animal made of grass and leaves cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it, all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is independent.
I'll read the next one. The three Purushas, Karnodakshayi Vishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and Shirodakshayi Vishnu, the material nature, the total material energy, the false ego, the five material elements, the material senses, the mind, the intelligence, the consciousness, cannot create the material manifestation without the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You go ahead. Text 12.
Right. A foolish, senseless person cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although always dependent, he falsely thinks himself the supreme. If one thinks, according to one's previous fruitive actions, one's material body is created by the father and mother, and the same body is annihilated by another agent, as another animal is devoured by a tiger, this is not proper understanding. The Supreme Personality of Godhead himself creates and devours the living beings, though through other living beings. Just as a person not inclined to die must nevertheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. Since everything is dependent upon the supreme will of the personality of Godhead, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death, in their same represented, in their effects represented as happiness and distress. One should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. One who knows that the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are not qualities of the soul, but qualities of material nature, and who knows that the pure soul is simply an observer of the actions and reactions of these qualities, should be understood to be a liberated person. He is not bound by these qualities. Oh, my enemy, just look at me. I have already been defeated, for my weapon and my arm have been cut to pieces. You have already overwhelmed me, but nonetheless, with the desire to kill you, I am trying my best to fight. I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your moroseness and continue fighting. Oh, my enemy, consider this battle a gambling match in which our lives are at stake, arrows on the dice, and the animals acting as carriers of the game board. No one can understand who will be defeated and who will be victorious. It all depends on providence. Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing the straightforward, instructive words of Vrtrasura, King Indra praised him and again took the thunderbolt in his hand. Without bewilderment or duplicity, he then smiled and spoke to Vrtrasura as follows. King Indra said, O great demon, I see by your discrimination and endurance in devotional service, despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul and friend of everyone. You have surmounted the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, and because of this liberation, you have given up the demonic mentality and have attained the position of an exalted devotee. O Vrtrasura, demons are generally conducted by the modes of passion. Therefore, what a great wonder it is that although you are a demon, you have adopted the mentality of a devotee and have fixed your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva, who is always situated in pure goodness. A person fixed in devotional service of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the Lord of the highest auspiciousness, swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of water in small ditches? Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Vrtrasura and King Indra spoke about devotional service even on the battlefield, and then as matter of duty, they began fighting again. Began fighting. My dear king, both of them were great fighters and were equally powerful. O Maharaj Prakshit, Vrtrasura, who is completely able to subdue his enemy, took his iron clubs, whirled it around, aimed it at Indra, and then threw it at him with his left hand. With his thunderbolt named
Sataparvan,
Indra simultaneously cut to pieces Vrtrasura's club and his remaining hand. Vrtrasura, bleeding profusely, his two arms cut off at their roots, looked very beautiful, like a flying mountain whose wings have been cut to pieces by Indra. Vrtrasura was very powerful in physical strength and influence. He placed his lower jaw on the ground and his upper jaw in the sky. His mouth became very deep, like the sky itself, and his tongue resembled a large serpent. With his fearful death-like teeth, he seemed to be trying to devour the entire universe. Thus, assuming again a gigantic body, the great demon Vrtrasura shook even the mountains and began crushing the surface of the earth with his legs as if he were the Himalayas walking about. He came before Indra and swallowed him and
Airavata.
Airavata, his carrier, just as a big python might swallow an elephant. Protective armor of Narayana, which...
Oh, no, you missed one. Go back to 30.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Then the demigods, along with Brahmana, other Prajapatis, and other great saintly persons, saw that Indra had just been swallowed by the demon. They became very morose. Alas, they lamented, what a calamity, what a calamity. The protective armor of Narayana, which Indra possessed, was identical with Narayana himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Protected by that armor and by his own mystic powers, King Indra, although swallowed by Vrtrasura, did not die within the demon's belly. With his thunderbolt, King Indra, who was also extremely powerful, pierced through Vrtrasura's abdomen and came out. Yep. Indra, the killer of the demons, then immediately cut off Vrtrasura's head, which was as high as the peak of mountains. Although the thunderbolt revolved around Vrtrasura's neck with great speed, separating his head from his body took one complete year, 360 days, the time in which the sun, moon, and other luminaries complete a northern and southern journey. Then at a suitable time for Vrtrasura to be killed, his head fell to the ground. When Vrtrasura was killed, the
Gandharvas
and Siddhas in the heavenly planets beat kettle drums in jubilation. With Vedic hymns, they celebrated the prowess of Indra, the killer of Vrtrasura, praising Indra and showering flowers upon him with great pleasure. O King Prakasha, subduer of enemies, the living spark then came forth from Vrtrasura's body and returned home back to Godhead. While all the demigods looked on, he entered the transcendental world to become an associate of Lord Sankarshan.
Haribol. Thank you so much for that nice reading. I appreciate that very much. You did a good job. Yeah, that's first class. First class. So yeah, these two chapters are amazing, and the way that Vrtrasura just left his body is exemplary. It reminds me of the story of Bhishma, who died on a bed of arrows on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna came to see him there, and he fixed his mind on the Lord. So when you go back and you read the beautiful prayers of Vrtrasura and how he wanted to be a servant of a servant, Dasa, Dasa, Anudasa, that means the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, removed millions of times. We don't expect to be able to serve Krishna directly, but we can serve Krishna through his devotees, through the parampara system, which is the disciplic succession that descends to us and brings us truth unbroken. So just like a chain is unbroken, and from one end to the other, it has tension, and it actually has vitality, because when you pull the chain, action occurs. But if the chain is broken, then you simply have a limp chain in your hand. It's of no use. It's not connected. So this parampara connects us to the spiritual masters, who are all thoroughly honest, who are following the Vedas and living a life of complete renunciation from material sense gratification. They've given their senses back to the owner of the senses, Hrishikesh, the master of the senses, and now all of their activities are in line with the will of God. And when a person's will becomes aligned with the will of God, he becomes holy, because God is holy. And what is holy? We don't really have a very good understanding of what is holy. Holy means non-dual. Holy means non-dual. So in the material world, for an example, there's good and there's bad, right? So we see that good and bad are being enacted at every moment, right? And we're trying to find justice in all this good and bad activity in the material world. So we think if someone is good, then they're holy. If they're bad, they're unholy, right? And I guess to a certain degree, that's true. But there's no conflict of duality in the body of the supreme personality of Godhead. Godhead is non-dual substance, non-dual. In other words, bad is good, good is bad. Everything is on a non-dual level. So when you have all of these emotions on the spiritual platform, they're all ecstasy to the devotee. That's why the devotee says, I don't even care if I have to go to a hellish place and serve, because they realize that they're not part of the dualistic world that we're living in. We're not part of this duality. Our bodies are subjected to it. Our soul is beyond the three modes of material nature. The three modes of material nature consist of ignorance, tamas, rajas, passion, and sattva guna, which is goodness. And beyond that, shuddha sattva. That means pure goodness. So anything done on behalf of the Lord, even killing, is good. Think about that a minute. Wrap your head around that one for just a second, because it's non-dual. It's done in the service of the Lord, and therefore it is all good. Because whatever's done on behalf of the Lord will have good effects for all creatures, all living entities, always, throughout all times, and can never be changed from that. So every act that the Lord does is done out of goodness, out of pure goodness. Every act. He's not, he's not subjected to lust, anger, greed, like that, lamentation, suffering that goes along with our identification with the material body. Not too long ago, there was a tornado that came through Tennessee. And, we hear about it on the news and we think, oh, that's terrible. But several people actually died. So from a distance, we're not feeling their pain. We're not feeling their suffering. We hear about it on the news. We go, oh, poor people. We're so sorry. Thank God it didn't happen to me, right? So we're thinking along those lines, right? So I had an occasion to drive through this damage the other day that I'd heard about on the news, just because my appointment took me in that direction. So when I saw the houses with the roofs blown off, and I saw all the baby furniture and the clothing and everything in the trees, I saw little dolls that were played by children up in the branches of a tree. I saw the trees crushing on the houses. And I saw that whatever they had built was destroyed. And you could almost just feel the lamentation and the pain and the suffering coming from that sight. Because these people had spent their whole life developing something that they were attached to that disappeared in a moment, in 1 second. They didn't even know how. They may not have even known the tornado was coming. And then all of a sudden their house explodes into little pieces. They're carried away, never to be seen again. So this is the material world. Danger at every step, Prabhupada said. And death is certain. We will all die. Even Providence, it says in this chapter, has not created a solution for that other than the two things that he talked about, which were death on the battlefield in glory, serving the Lord on a religious purpose, or in mystic yoga, in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in bhakti or in loving devotion. Those are the two ways that we can leave this planet. So if those people were affected by a tornado in that very moment, and they had the good education and good intelligence and good direction to be able to fix their mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their death would be just as glorious as Vrtrasura's, who then what? Went back home, back to Godhead. And we see the same thing in the previous chapters when we read about Ajamil. Well, Ajamil, wasn't even calling on God. He was calling on his son. He was totally neglectful. unconscious, but yet he issued those syllables, Narayana, Narayana. And those syllables relieved him of all of his millions and billions of lives, of mountains of karma that he was destined to suffer at the hands of the Rakshasas, the Yamadutas, sent by the Lord of Death for his rectification. But we know that the Vishnu Dutas, hearing the name of their master being spoken from the lips of the dying Ajamil, they appeared immediately and made the Yakshasas unhand him. And they said to him, "Do not fear, do not fear." They repeated it. And Ajamil immediately knew that he was in the hands of the power of God and his direct representatives. That's the way we want to die, in the hands of the power of God's direct representatives. We want to be surrounded by God's representatives. We want to be surrounded by God's holy names. We want to be surrounded by the beautiful images of the Lord in the deities on the altar, and depictions of these great stories that we're hearing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where God is chivalrous and he comes to slay the demons. As a great hero, he comes. And in that situation, we can too die a glorious death like Bhishma or like Vrtrasura did here. And I just got a call from Rakesh. So he's probably trying to get on the thing here, but I don't know how to tell him to do that. And our dear Rangavati is in England, so we feel a bit inadequate to help him. I'll catch him right after the program. So going back home, back to Godhead, is the solution to death. The only solution to death. So if we go back, and how do we go there? It was just described to us. There's two ways to die a glorious death, like Vrtrasura did. One is fighting on behalf of the Lord, and the other is meditating on the Lord in love and devotion. So when we go back one chapter to chapter 11, there's a couple of verses here that really need to be kind of looked at a little bit more carefully. And I'm going to go over those verses with you now. The first one is text 23. And it says here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead forbids his devotees to endeavor uselessly for material religion. And what is material religion? Do we have any idea? You know what material religion is? Unmute.
Greed, lust, power,
Well, no, well,
egotism.
yeah, if you have those and they govern your devotional service to the Lord or your service to the Lord. In other words, you're a businessman, you're going to the Lord, you're greedy and you're lusty, you want more money. So you're asking God to give you more money. Yeah. Or if you're lusty, you can go to God and say, I want more enjoyment with the opposite sex. Or you could say to yourself that, I want, just like these kings have whole stalls of these virgins, you could want whatever you want in the material world. And Krishna will provide, even if it's bad for you. That's the love of God. He will give you whatever you desire. Now, he will not recommend it to you, and he will try to dissuade you from it, just like a father would with a child. Please don't do that. Don't do it, son. The son says, no, Dad, I've got to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. And he's going, no, son, you can't do it. Finally, the son adamantly disobeys his father and goes and does it anyway. What is a father to do? So our Father, he welcomes us back when we find the bitter end of that road and we turn back to him. He's willing to welcome us back. That's causeless love that we receive from the Lord because we didn't do anything to deserve it. We're a part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore we're part of his actual body. We're part of the makeup of God. It's just like your body was created from your parents' body, right? So your soul is created from the soul of God. So you are a little God. And so when we see you, we offer our respects and our obeisances. And we realize that that spiritual spark is different than the gross material machine that you're riding around in. The machine itself is destined to be the food of jackals and vultures. That's what Vrtrasura just said. But the soul inside, once it can identify with its true nature, then it achieves a state called Satchidananda Vigraha. Satchidananda Vigraha. Eternality with absolute knowledge, ecstasy, ever increasing, in a form exactly like that of God. Twofold bending forward of Shamsundra, the human form, is created in. So it's very, very beautiful. And so when we see the deities on the altar, we see Radha and Krishna on the altar, that relieves our distress in the material world for enjoyment in the material world. We see the supreme couple. We can put all of our burdens, really. We can put all of our hopes on the Lord. We can put all of our desires in the Lord. We can put all of our activities and our energies into the Lord. We can give the results of all of our labor to the Lord. And we can do all of that. And by doing that, we're liberated from the material world. We're liberated and we're given a spiritual body like that of the Lord. The Vishnu Dutas that came to get Ajamil looked just like Krishna. What were they missing? They were missing the mark of Srivats, which is a mark across the chest of the Lord, and they were missing the Kaustubha jewel. But other than that, they looked just like Vishnu. And he came with 16 Vishnu Dutas when he came to the arena where Vrtrasura was created by the Brahmins. So the Lord forbids us to do business with him in the Vedic literatures, although they're there for you. And they're there for you to have a better place, go to the heavenly planets, get more money, have more of this. But the Lord forbids it. And he says that one should not actually go to you should come to him for everything. One should come to the Lord for every single thing. Because even the demigods get their power and prowess from the Lord. So go straight to the source is what Krishna is recommending. He doesn't recommend that we endeavor hard like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses for useless economic development. And we see that the world today it's going nonstop. I mean, there are literally millions of people in the air flying around at 600 miles an hour right now trying to get to their next sense gratificatory act. And that's the reason they're in such a hurry. They want to get there. They want to get there quick. You got to serve the tongue. I got to serve the belly. I've got to serve the genital. My goal in life is belly, tongue, genital, belly, tongue, genital, belly, tongue, genital. That's what these people are thinking all day and all night long. They're never satisfied. They're throwing wood on a fire that is blazing hotter and hotter and hotter, and finally consumes everyone it comes in contact with. So that is what's happening in the material world. And they're spending unlimited total resources and money. They're fighting over a few hectares of land, thinking that, oh, if I just could control this square mile of land, finally I would be happy. I don't like you. I don't like your religion. I don't like your skin color. I don't like your hair. I mean, what? Name it. I don't like, they don't like anything. Envy means I don't like you because you have something that I want to possess. How did you get it? Do you not know it's mine? I shall take it from you immediately and pry it from your cold, dead hands. Your wealth, your home, they invade each other in their countries. They rape the women and the children. They take them in as slaves. Is this a wonderful place to live? Are they still doing it in the 21st century? Yes. Yes. You want to stick around here for some more of that? You may be lucky right now and not in harm's way today, but can you guarantee that you'll not be in harm's way tomorrow? No. So therefore, you have to surrender everything you have, everything you are to the Lord. And so the Lord doesn't allow you to have unrestricted sense gratification, because that unrestricted sense gratification is just a consumption of fire in the material world, and it distracts us from the true goal of life, which is spiritual emancipation, freedom from birth, death, old age, and disease. So he doesn't really favor his devotees with he doesn't favor them if they aspire for all these material gains. So what Vrtrasura prayed was, "O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O my Lord, when will I again be able to be the servant of your eternal service, who finds shelter only at your lotus feet? Lord of my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind always thinks of your transcendental attributes, that my words always glorify your attributes, and that my body is always engaged in your loving service." When will that happen? Krishna says that, or Lord Chaitanya says that also in Shishastakam. Yugayatam nimeshena chakshusha pravrisayatam sunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. So when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your name? When will one moment feels like 12 years or more, because I'm desperate to be with you? I just want to lick the honey that's emanating from your lotus feet. See? So the Lord is asking for those things. He doesn't want anything in the material world. He doesn't want women. Na danam na janam na sundaram. Kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare. Bhavatam bhaktir haituki taib. Mama janmani janmani means I want your service life after life. I don't want women. I don't want followers. I don't want money. I don't want any of this stuff here. None of this stuff excites me. So because they have understood that the source of all this stuff has to be billions of times better than just these little bitty tidbits of the spark of the splendor of God. So he says, "Oh, my Lord, source of all opportunities, I do not desire to enjoy Dhruva Loka." We just read the story of Dhruva not too long ago. You ought to read about that. Dhruva Loka, the whole universe surrounds, circumambulates the pole star Dhruva's place. So basically, Dhruva is one of the highest planets existences in the material world. He said, "I don't even want to go to Dhruva Loka. I don't want to go to the heavenly planets. I don't want to go to where Lord Brahma Loka. I don't want to go to Siddha Loka." He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to be the supreme ruler of all the earthly planets or the lower planets. He doesn't want to have mystic powers of yoga where he can manipulate things and go get things in the universe and drink the soma rasa. He doesn't want that. He doesn't even want it. That's what everybody's going for in the material world in their mystic yoga process, the Jnana yoga process, Ashtanga yoga. A lot of that is designed to lead us there. He doesn't want it. And guess what else he doesn't want? He doesn't even want liberation. That's hard to get your head around, man. He doesn't even want it. He just doesn't want anything that he has to give up the Lord's service or the attachment to his lotus feet. If it causes him a distraction from the Lord's lotus feet, he don't want it. So you got to love Vrtrasura, man. He is so happening. So, and he sees himself as a little bird that hasn't even developed his wings yet, that needs to be waiting on his mother's return just to feed him. That's how helpless Vrtrasura, this biggest demon that could devour the whole universe, he sees himself in that most insignificant, humble position. Or he says, as small calves are tied with ropes, anxiously await the time of milking so they can drink their mother's milk. That's how he's feeling. Wants to be with the Lord that bad. Or a morose wife who's always longing for her husband to return, satisfy her in all respects, who's been away for a long time. He feels that way. So that separation, like we're talking about, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, he said, when will a moment feel like 12 years or more, suffering in your separation? And he goes on, he says, my Lord and Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of his own karma, his own fruitive activities. He knows it. Therefore, he says he simply is seeking friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. He don't even want to hang out with anybody except for enlightened devotees. So this is the deal. And he goes on and he says, my attachment to my own body, the body that I'm living in, to my wife and my children, my home, my family, all of this thing it's just simply continuing under the spell of God's illusory energy. The only reason it's even happening is it's a spell. We're under the spell. We're in Maya. We're in illusion. Maya means that which is not. Your family will not exist. Your body will not exist. This place will not exist. Not one stone shall remain standing. Everything will be ground up. Everything will be going back into the body of the Lord unmanifest. Everything will go to sleep. Everything will come back out and be remanifest again and again and again and again and again. Over and over and over. Continuity will be lost. And we don't want that. So he says, I want to give up the attachment of my wife, children, home, etc., which has been continuing under your external spell. But I wish to be attached to them no longer. Just let my mind, my consciousness, and everything that I have and everything that I am be attached to you and you alone. I think that's enough said. I don't know what you could add to that. I think Vrtrasura laid it out for us so that we could understand it perfectly well. And when you say not attached to these things, try to understand everything has a utility principle in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada said utility is the principle. So when you see something, you go, can I use this for Krishna? And if you can find a utility for it, it's perfected. It becomes the source of your liberation. If you can't find a utility for something, don't use it. Just leave it alone. Yama niyama. Leave everything that's inauspicious out of the way you can't use for Krishna. Give it up. Everything that you can use for Krishna, take it up. Take it up. And engage it in the Lord's service full-heartedly, with all enthusiasm, and you will be successful without a doubt. So Vrtrasura's death is glorious because he left his body and went directly back home, back to Godhead. Here's an account of somebody doing that. Everybody in the whole world should be glued to this information right now. They should be in rapt attention hearing this story because what's the alternative? Repeated birth and death, suffering? Repeated loss of everything you've ever worked for over and over again? Is that the goal you're working for? Is that the ultimate dream? I think not. So what we have to do is know that our situation is we're not independent. We can't take for granted anything that happens to us. Everything is provided to us by the Lord, no matter what it is. And we accept it as our lot in life. We are grateful for it. and we see ourselves as somebody who deserves much worse. And if you have this attitude that whatever happens, don't be disgusted, don't be frustrated, don't be angry, don't be unhappy, don't be sad. Give it up. That's all illusion anyway. Give it up. Be excited that, look, this is my relationship with Krishna and he's got something to teach me. Let me learn it. Let me be prayerful. Let me ask the Lord to reveal his mind through my daily movie of my life. When we get up, we watch the movie of our life play out, don't we? Sometimes the ending is in that very day. We don't know. The ending of the movie is in that very day. So for us, we have to be ready at all times. We don't know. So I wanted to read at the very end of this chapter, and then we'll finish this. You know, we could talk about this chapter for days. There's so many wonderful parts in this chapter that we could go over, but I just wanted to bring out that one highlight, which is his passing primarily. It says, when Vrtrasura was killed, the Gandharvas and the Siddhas and the heavenly planets beat kettle drums in jubilation because the demon was dead. A threat to them was dead. So with Vedic hymns, they celebrated the prowess of Indra, the king of heaven, and the killer of Vrtrasura, praising Indra and showering flowers upon him with great pleasure. So in this material world, there's a personality who is a Jivatma, king of heaven, who has almost the same power and glory, etc., and so on as God. King of heaven. He's a Kshatriya. He's a warrior. He's a king. He's an administrator. Sometimes he falls to pride. Sometimes he falls a little bit to lust or envy. We can see that he stole a sacrificial horse. You know, he did a lot of crazy stuff. Indra is always getting in trouble. And what happens? Because he's got pride. He's got such wealth. He's got such fame. He's got such adoration. He's being worshipped. You know, it's a difficult position for a jiva soul to maintain. The sannyasis and the gurus, they give it all right back to Krishna. They don't keep any of it for themselves. They go, "This is not mine. This belongs to my spiritual master." So they just upload it to the link to their guru. If they decide to keep that adulation for themselves and they're interested in fame, profit, adoration, or distinction, then they're no longer qualified to be guru. They become bogus and they fall from their platform. So it's very, very important that we follow strictly those thoroughly honest Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are living the appropriate lifestyle. So when they do that, it says they the living spark here came forth from Vrtrasura's body. You know, there's these pictures. You can go on the internet. I don't know how real they are. They could be Photoshopped for all I know. I'm not endorsing them. Okay, could be AI, but they show two things that I saw that were pretty amazing. One was when a person died, there was the area was being photographed, and the actual spark was seen leaving the building, actually going into the air. That was filmed. And that's not only one time. I've seen that many times. Another time is when the egg, the ovum, and the sperm is swimming, and when it finally penetrates the covering of the egg and enters into the ovum, to the egg itself, a light flashes. And it happens every time. And you can see that photography. You can see that online. You should go look it up. Kind of interesting, you know, that life comes into dead matter that way, or life leaves dead matter that way. And so we can see, even with regular, ordinary eyes, the eyes of a camera, that we are beyond the material body. We are beyond the three modes of material nature. We are not the possessors of this world. We are not the masters of all we survey. We are servants to all we survey. And we should become expert servants to the spiritual master. And by doing that, the Lord will be pleased. Our lives will become sublime. And everyone we touch will be benefited. That's my story. Haribo. Haribo. Thank you for being with us tonight. I see Rakesh is on here finally. Yeah, but we're going to go ahead and finish this meeting for tonight. We're limping along without Rangavati. Let's just go ahead and give her the credit, the credit that she deserves, even in her absence. We appreciate her trying to help organize. Yeah, no, Bhavananda feels the same way. He's at home alone. Uh-oh. You got to watch that. Under the watchful eye of Rangavati, Bhavananda has a very short leash, I'm sure. She's probably in there floating around. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for being here with us. We are going to, next week, we will be going through one more chapter about this, and then we'll finish this story just to kind of button it up. And thank you so much for participating. And if you were not with us tonight, maybe you can catch this online. But at this point, with your permission, I would like to go ahead and end the class if there's no further questions. Is that okay? I have one thing to say. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thanks so much. See you next time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.